If you knew me before, you wouldn't even look my way.
And welcome back to Sullivan's Unheard Voices. I'm here with Tamara. Do you prefer Tamara or Tamara?
Normally Tam.
Normally Tam.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tamara's not common.
Yeah, so I really wanted to talk to you because of our friend Brooklyn. I was talking to her the other day, and she was talking to me about your kind of strategies and your approach to sort of like marketing and how you're sort of getting off the ground running and sort of starting up. And I'm like, oh, I have so many questions, and I was so taken aback by what just she talked about that I was like, I have to have you and have this conversation. What prompted your journey into like the marketing arena?
Honestly, a little weird, a little strange. So when I first started out, got it. Okay. When I first started out, I wanted to be in healthcare. I wanted to work mental health. I worked group homes, nonprofits for a long, long time. And I got all the way up through like going into my second year, my internships to be a licensed clinical therapist. I had 40 more hours to be licensed. And then I was looking into jobs, and I was looking at like what I would do when I grew up kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's no money in it. Unless you're in private practice, there's no money in doing that. And I have 7 kids. So supporting a huge family on that type of income just didn't make sense. And it was either work group homes or do that. And so I switched my major. I switched to a business major that matched my undergraduate. And in my business major, I took a marketing class. And it was about digital marketing. And it was about saturation in marketing. And it was fascinating. So I finished up my business degree and got my dual concentration in marketing. So I didn't start on that spectrum. I started in nonprofit management and mental health care and transitioned into marketing. And pieces of it were kind of complementary because a lot of marketing is about how people receive your message, how they interpret it, how they take it in, evoking a feeling in someone, the feeling to get people to buy, that conversion. And so that was kind of a fun little twist on something I already knew and how to apply it a different way. And then the marketing stuff, after I got my degree, I got a job at a waterproofing company. It was what I did my dissertation on for my master's degree, was the marketing plan for this large company. And over the course of time, we went from like $2 million to like $14 million in the 3 years that I was their marketing director. So I was like, I'm pretty good at this. Okay. But I got kind of bored. Once I figured out the systems and I knew how to turn off the leads and turn on the leads and get it going. So it was, help a friend build a website, help a friend build a chatbot, help a friend with their social media page. And the more of that I did, the more fulfilling that was. And I was like, I could just do this. And that's what I did. And so it was people starting brand new businesses. And I was like, got you. Say less.
And I appreciate that so much because it's the businesses that are just starting out who need the most help, right? Like
most of the time, yes.
Well, case in point, my own case, right? So like I was in communications for almost 2 decades. I still don't know crap about marketing, right? And it's one of those huge gaps where like people don't think that there's a difference, but there's a huge difference in how you approach, the messaging that you convey, all of that piece. And it's like one of those areas that I've always struggled in because like I'm not a salesperson. I can't. Everybody
says they're not a salesperson, but it's because you're looking at sales the wrong way. When you're choosing to look at sales, it's I have this valuable thing to offer you. Like let's take your podcast for example. Yeah. I have an opportunity to get your message, your community, your voice to the world. I'm offering you a service.
Yeah.
And you look at it instead like you're trying to convince these people to buy 5-day-old fish. You're not. You're giving them something that they need to be successful. You're giving them an opportunity. And so if you look at it as I'm the one here bringing value to your life, I'm the one that you should be like, yes, please hook up with me, sign up with me. I'm the good girlfriend. I'm the primo stuff. And you look at it that way, it doesn't feel pushy. It doesn't feel salesy. It doesn't feel scary because it's, I have this great thing. If you want it, here you go. And a lot of people look at sales the other way, like I'm trying to force you and convince you. So the conversations feel uncomfortable. They feel sticky. They feel like you're trying to push something on this person and convince them that you're the shit and everything is amazing. When really, it's the other way around. You should be looking at it more like I'm interviewing you to see if I think you're a good fit and it would be valuable to you. Your sales, you're pitching it to people that you see value in. Like if someone wanted to come on your podcast and you were like, I don't see any way to help you, would you talk to them about coming on your podcast?
So let me throw a different kind of example, right? Like there was somebody recently that really wanted to be on my podcast, but they're not kind. And I will not let anybody who is not kind on my podcast. I refuse. Like, if you're not kind, I don't want to talk to you.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes for an easier interview.
Right?
Sure. It's to that point, like, okay, if I was selling wheelchairs,
Yeah.
I wouldn't sell a wheelchair to a triathlete. Like,
Right.
you're pitching to people who need and want your service. When
Yeah.
you're talking to the right people, sales is easy. When you're talking to your target audience, and that's where marketing comes in. Who is my target audience? Who wants what I need? Who wants what I'm selling? Because then when you hit the sale part, you're already a done deal. You know that they want you.
So let's pause there for a second, right? Because that's one of those areas that a lot of people struggle is how do you even start to identify who your target audience is? Like, how does that conversation start?
So it's a little bit different for each person, but when I first meet with new businesses and we talk about who's your target demographic, who are you trying to message, who are you trying to talk to, right? A lot of them say, well, anyone that wants a cleaner house. Well, no, that's not true, right? Brooklyn's example. Brooklyn's a good one, right? So you have different tiers of cleaning. You have their high level cleaning. They offer this amazing service. They put out this beautiful product, but it's not really geared towards a 20-something-year-old frat person who eats top ramen every day.
Yeah.
No, it's not. They can't afford that. It's out of their budget. So if she's trying to pitch to that guy, she's going to be burnt. It's going to be a hard sale, right? Whereas with them, it's I'm a working mother. I have a good amount of income, or let's say I'm a career woman. She's talking, really, they're talking to someone like me. I'm a 40-something-year-old with several children. I run my own business. I run my own jobs. I don't have time. I would rather spend the time working on marketing, working on my business, working on clients, than folding my laundry.
Yeah.
I have the income to afford to pay someone to come and fold my laundry so I can make more money, right? That's the person Brooklyn's talking to. So then you build out a client avatar. You build out who is the person I'm talking to. I'm talking to Tamara, right?
Yeah.
And so you write me down, 40-year-old mom, 5 kids, works from home, often feels stressed out, and would rather pay someone to have a job done right than to take the 5 hours to do it herself. When you craft your messaging, all of it is geared towards you speaking directly to me. Hey, I know you had a long day. Did your client interview go like shit? You had a sideways proposal. Someone didn't accept your thing. You've got 4 kids that got to go to soccer. You've got one that needs to go to football, and you've got another one that has band practice. Do you want to sit here after that at 9 p.m. at night and fold your laundry? No, you don't.
Right.
You know who does? Me. Pay me for it. And me on the receiving end of that message is like, you know what? You're right. That sounds great. And so I'm an easy sell because you're speaking directly to me and you're saying exactly what I want to hear. You're hitting those pain points. You're doing those things. Same thing with, a broom or a mop, right?
Yeah.
If you're selling a certain type of broom or mop, let's say it's a 6-foot-long handle, I'm not going to sell it to a 4-foot-tall woman, right? If I'm selling a midget broom, hey, do you commonly run into small person problems? Like everything is too big for you?
Yeah.
You're commonly having to reach up. You're using a stair stepper. We made this perfect mop that's only 4'3" so that you can hold the handle of it and really be able to apply pressure without the hassle of trying to accommodate or squeeze or have this giant stick. You're pitching it that this is the exact thing you need as a person.
Yeah.
And so whenever you're creating a product and you're thinking about your demographic, it's who's bought from me before, who continues to buy from me. Is there a running theme or trend with all of my customers, with all of my clients? Are they all 40-year-old dudes who want a jacked up, lifted up truck? Yeah, they are. Okay, so that's who I'm talking to. So I'm going to have more memes. I'm going to have more patriotic stuff. I might have more farm things in my messaging because that's who I'm talking to. And you kind of survey and you look around like, who's Chad? Oh, Chad drinks PBR every Friday. He wears boots and a belt buckle. He wants his lifted truck and he wants to make sure it has weather guard materials in it so he can go out and get muddy and still pick up chicks on Friday after he washes his truck out. You're picking who you're talking to. And then the sale part is really easy because you're identifying exactly what that one person wants.
And then, of course, it's a matter of targeting where you get that information after that.
Yes, and there's a lot of ways to do that, and even now, more so now because of AI.
Yeah.
You could go to ChatGPT and say, I sell weather mats. My typical client, the guy that I get the most from, tend to be 40-year-old dudes with lifted pickups, and they come in and they want, deer decals and antler horns on their truck. I'm just throwing that out there because we're going with Chad right now.
Yeah.
What might that target demographic look like? Who else might I talk to? And what might be some pain points or things that he wants out of this? And then it'll lay it out for you. Or let's say I know that Chad is my ideal person, right? Chad comes in, he buys this deer decal from me with camo paint and this and that and the other. I asked Chad, hey Chad, can you tell me a little bit about what you do? What are your hobbies? What do you like? Where do you hang out? And that's called a client interview. And so that's part of the demographic we make. What are their hobbies? What are their interests? Where do they shop? What might they watch on TV? And you think about it. Okay, well, Chad probably likes deer hunter and bass fishing. Probably shops at Bass Pro Shops. So you think about who they are as a person and what they might do. And you can ask one of your favorite clients, who's your favorite person you've ever podcasted? Ask them questions. Like, ask, what do you watch? Do you watch Reels? Do you watch Shorts? Do you spend your time on Facebook? Do you spend your time on YouTube? Because then you know who your favorite person is and where they're hanging out. So then when you're marketing and you're putting stuff out there, you're putting it on YouTube because you know that's where Linda watches videos. You're putting it on Facebook because you know that Chad is watching Facebook Reels at 3 a.m. You're tailoring where you put content and what you put out based on where these people are spending time.
And I can appreciate that in a lot of ways. So one of the things that I've noticed in my journey in this podcast is a lot of musicians struggle with marketing.
Yeah.
And there are so many amazing musicians. Like, I was interviewing a musician the other day, and I was surprised that this musician doesn't have any of their live music on their social media.
That's crazy.
That's
crazy.
That's the last thing I said to this person too. Was like, you're going on this thing and you're doing this thing and they're having this amazing. You need to record some of that and let people see, because that's a way for people to get introduced. Because if you're a musician and your music isn't readily accessible,
how are they getting out there now? Just word of mouth?
They're part of different bands and they're relying on the bands to push the marketing of the musicians. But in reality, like, you as a musician, like, you should also have that stuff on your personal page and practices.
That was part of what you and I talked about right before we started this. So when you send your...
Yeah, let's go back to that because same
concept. Like, you're interviewing me right now, right? And so when we're all said and done, hey, I'm going to totally send you this so that you can put it on your Facebook, on your Instagram, on your YouTube, on your whatnot to promote yourself, right? So you're sending me that link and you're relying on me. And, I have 8,000 followers on my page. And so if I put a link to my 8,000 people, 3,000 of them maybe check and see it. 1,000 of them might click on the message. 500 of them might click on my podcast link. That's 500 people that weren't in your audience, that were in mine, that now come to your audience. The same is true for these bands and these musicians and these promoters. It's, I just did this guest spot with The Who or whatever. Check out the link. And then they go and they look at it. And so every time when you're done, say, doing a podcast and you send them this, here's the link to the show. Here's 6 ways that I recommend you promote this on your page. Give them the instructions. Put this on your Facebook. Put this on your LinkedIn. Drop a link to it on the resource tab or your blog page on your website. Tell them exactly how to do it. Because a lot of times with marketing, again, people don't know how. And so, hey, thank you so much for coming on my show on Saturday. It was such a blast. Here's the link to our recording. In case you're curious how you can use this and get more exposure, here's 6 ways we recommend. Boom, boom, boom. And you drop it right there.
Yeah, because one of the things that I always want to do for guests, too, is and I do let them know, but very few take me up on it. I think Johnny Wheels was one of the only ones where I'll give you the audio and the video. Like, you can do whatever you want with it. And I think he's the only one that's put it up on his website so far.
With yours, I understand that, and especially with performers. from a marketing standpoint for your business,
Yeah.
give them the link to your recorded podcast, because then they're sharing the entire podcast. If you just give them the raw audio or you give them the raw video of it and he downloads it to his computer, it's in no way linked back to you. It's in no way linked to your pages and your content. Whereas if you give it to them and you say, here's the link to our podcast, anytime someone clicks on that or goes to view that, they have to go through your page to get there. They have to route through you. And then they're more likely to watch other podcasts. They're more likely to want to see your podcast. And Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, all of them say that they're routing traffic through here, so they start to show them more content that's similar.
Yeah.
They start to put that into the algorithm that they're interested in you. And so more of your content will be visible.
Interesting.
So run it that way as opposed to giving them raw files.
Okay. And then you were talking about, just before we came on air, about the importance of like clips.
Yeah. So another one, let's use your musicians. Do you talk to a lot of musicians?
A lot of musicians.
Okay. So same concept. So let's say we're having Wheeler on the podcast, right?
Yeah.
Normally, you're going to want to pitch and promote your podcast a week to 2 weeks before airing. So let's say we're recording right now, right?
Yeah.
Normally, you would give yourself a week to 2 weeks. We interview today. You have that raw footage, right?
Yeah.
2 weeks out, this gets pushed on your YouTube page. Like you give yourself what's called a promotion window. And that's the time that you take to clean it up, to do the audio, to do the, pieces. In that week to 2 week window, you might take something that I say that you think is just fire, absolute magic, right? Little 30-second quote that I gave you about anything. I'll just say horses or unicorns in disguise. I don't know. Pick something, right? And you take 30 seconds of that and you say, this was such an impactful idea. Our whole interview was full of those. And you share it and you say, here's the link to my podcast page. The podcast episode drops on the 24th. And you take a couple of those little 30 seconds to build up anticipation. And you share it with me. And you say, hey, I created this clip. Can you share it on your page? Yeah, sure. Or you post it and you tag me and I reshare it on my page. So we're both working together to share these. And we do a couple of these little 30 seconds, little 10 seconds, little quotes. Like, wow, you're right. That's some marketing shit that I didn't know. I should check this out. And then you take maybe 2 minutes of it, 1 to 2 minutes, and you post a reel of 1 to 2 minutes of what we're talking about. Maybe it's marketing structure, like what I'm telling you right now. Do a reel, do a video, do a promotion. And you take 1 to 2 minutes of that and you make it a Facebook reel or a YouTube short if you're promoting it through YouTube. So excited. This was absolute gold. Check out the full podcast on June 1st. Here's the link. And you drop those the week or two prior. And you make sure you tag me. And you make sure you tag my business page. And a couple people you think might be interested. Hey, Brooklyn, this was a great piece about marketing that I think you might like. And you grab a couple people that you know are into that thing. If you're talking to a blues musician, had the best interview with this blues musician. I know you're into blues and I know you're looking on ways to get out there more. He had some great tips so that they're wanting to check that out. If you can tag and identify 3 to 4 people or niches for each of those, and they're like, oh, he's talking to me.
Yeah.
They're more likely to tune in, right?
Yeah.
And so then when it does drop on the 1st, you've already promoted for 2 weeks. I've promoted for 2 weeks. It drops on the 1st. And I say, I'm so excited. My podcast aired today on Sean's show. Here's the link for it. He also gave it to me and I put it on my website and my blog page. Go check it out. And then they get the full piece of it. But if you just drop the full piece without some of those promotions, without some of those teasers, they don't know why they should tune in. They don't know why they should be there. They don't know what I'm about. They don't know what I'm talking about. It's just, check this out. Why? Why am I checking this out? So in any type of marketing, you want to give them that, here's why this matters to you and why you should give a shit about what I'm talking about. You want to have those pieces, even if it's a post. Like, you want to have breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
Or else they're not going to know to tune in and be a piece of it. Same for any business. You want to have those little drops, the breadcrumbs that lead them to the meat.
Yeah, because it's I'm finally at that point in this podcast where I can start to do that. Like, I really do feel like the first 65 episodes were decent. but they're starting to get a lot better just in terms of quality and all that stuff. And so I'm ready now to just
Well, and podcasts
do a
especially are
push.
kind of an evolution.
Yeah.
And so another thing you might do as far as your booking goes, re-hit some of those earlier guests and say,
Yeah.
hey, we interviewed when it was still early. We've evolved. We've changed. We've done our format a little bit different. I would love to have you back on. And then you're not only filling your booking calendar with all of these people, but you're giving them a shot at doing something better. And you can say, hey, I interviewed you 6 months ago. Where are you at now? What are you doing now? As a follow-up or a feature from the vault.
Yeah.
And then you're making it something fun and exciting. And you're pulling it back to them.
Yeah, because there's a few that I would love to have back on. A few come to mind.
I think with musicians, that'd be particularly entertaining, is watching and chronicling their journey as they become more successful. Or let's say they didn't. What stopped you? What prevented you? What made you not do this anymore? Because then you can help them to identify, here's where these key pieces are. And then other musicians who are listening or watching are like, oh, here's some things I should watch out for. Here's some pitfalls. Here's some struggles that I could encounter. And so you tailor your message a little bit different.
So once you have sort of that part of identified, like the question I always have is like where to invest.
That's
if you're
kind of
gonna
tricky. Investing time or investing money?
More money than time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know where exactly, and this is particularly for me, right? Because I know where my time goes, mainly because it's out trying to find guests, and I have like things that I have to meet certain criteria, but I don't know where to invest the money to advertise something like this, or even if it's worth it, or just to keep going organically.
Well, okay, so early in business, you have more time than money.
Yeah.
Like, you have more time to go out and look for things. As your business grows and you develop, you have more money than time because things are working, things are going, and you don't have the time to continue to do the things you used to do.
Okay.
Now, let's say you're a brand new business, right? You get 1 to 2 sales calls a week, 3 sales calls a week. You have time, right?
Yeah.
So you post organically once a week or once a day on 5 different platforms. You go into community forums on Facebook. You figure out, so remember how we talked about your target demographic, right? If I'm talking to 25-year-old Chad and I'm selling Monster energy drinks, I'm going to be on Instagram. I'm going to be on TikTok. I'm going to be in that younger crowd. If I'm talking to Chad's redneck dad and I'm selling shotguns, I might go be on X because that's a very conservative platform right now. And I'm going to look for places where this person hangs out.
And Facebook now is pretty much the over 45 crowd at this
Facebook
point.
tends to be over 45, but there is some definite overlap because a lot of those younger kids, my kids, for example, are on Facebook because I'm on Facebook. And so I send them things on Messenger. There is an overlap. But yeah, right now, Facebook tends to lean a little more 35 to 75. It's considered the boomer platform.
Right.
But it's also people who like long form content written because not everyone is into video. The vast majority are, even on Facebook. Facebook prefers video content and will show Facebook content video content 85% more than static content. So if you're not using videos to promote your products, you're burnt. You're absolutely burnt.
Does it matter if it's like video from a different platform?
It doesn't, but if you're trying, so like for me, I monetize my content. And so as a creator, I share things. If they're reshared, they're talked about, they're commented on, I get money for that, right? If I'm sharing a meme that I thought was cool, or I'm sharing a reel from someone else, that's their property and I don't get paid for it.
Okay.
And then in addition to that, Facebook for creators, like for you as a podcast host, is going to favor original content. And so it might be similar to what I just did when I walked in, right? I took pictures of the microphones. I took pictures of you over at the mic. It might be a short little reel or something of you setting up your sound equipment or doing a sound check. 30 seconds of you saying test, test, test. Doesn't even matter. Prepping for my podcast with Tam. So excited. That's video content. It's original and it gears you up towards the next thing. So you're posting those behind the scenes snippets and then you tie that into what you've actually created and done. Facebook considers that real it's original content and it's put together. So even if
Okay.
you took 10 seconds of this and shared it, or let's say you go into Canva and you text, getting ready for Tuesday's podcast at the rec center. So excited. And you put music behind it, save it as a reel. Facebook will give priority to that over you just typing, getting ready for today's podcast. So excited. It's as simple as adding music to the background of it. And you can
Okay.
do it on Canva for free. Like it's easy to do those things. Back to your thing about money.
Yeah.
It all depends on who your person is. So if you're looking for musicians and you're talking to musicians, YouTube Red, their music channel, Amazon Music, if you're going to invest money and you're going to put those things out there, because musicians are putting content on those chapters, on those pages. So if you're trying to get musicians and that's your target demographic, people you're selling your podcast to, hey, I have a podcast where I interview musicians. I would love to talk to you.
Yeah.
And then, there's other ones like, let's say you were doing writers. You would post on Scribe. You find places where writers are hanging out, where musicians are hanging out. TikTok, there's, what is Musically? Is that what it was?
I think so, yeah.
It has a
Yeah.
new name now, but that was a place for aspiring musicians to put short clips and get seen and get auditions and things like that.
Yeah.
So you as a podcaster looking for musicians, that would have been a great platform for you to throw 10 or 15 bucks at. Like, it doesn't have to be a large amount as long as you're talking to the right people.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people miss. I can throw a shit ton of money at something, but if I'm trying to sell, a quilting circle to Chad, it's not going
to work.
It's not going to work, right? So it's about putting the money to the right people. So that's where when you're doing a Facebook ad, you're looking at targeted, you're looking at keywords, you're looking at interests, you're looking at demographics and behavioral units, and you're narrowing down who you're spending money on.
Yeah.
That's where you're setting up the retargeting. That's what we're doing with Brooklyn and Serenity is we did the rebrand and this is who we're talking to. Well, now we've dialed in those pieces of it. So let's get a little more granular. We want people that make over $100,000. We want a dual person household. We want mothers with children. So we're targeting, teens. We're targeting sports. And you narrow it in. And the cool thing about most advertising now is it's AI assisted and it's smart learning and it's categories. And so if someone checks out your page or they like it, Facebook, Google, Instagram, all of them say, oh, here's your person. And they pull them in for you. And they start to collect that information, and that's who they show it to.
Okay.
If you're going to invest money, use smart ads. Use the AI assistants because the computers are going to do far more research than we are going to. And they're going to do it so fast. So if you are going to put money into it, that's the way to do it.
And more people are online creating digital or consuming digital content as opposed to
wow.
TV these days anyway.
Not even close.
Yeah.
Not even close. And that's another one, depending on who you are and what you're selling and what level you're at. You can get ads on Hulu for dirt cheap. You can get ads on Roku for even cheaper. So let's say you want to do TV advertisement. That's the place to do it.
Interesting.
YouTube Red, Roku, Hulu. Netflix is expensive because it's a wider platform, but Tubi,
Yeah.
things like that. I see local programming on those all the time because the vast majority of people now have already cord cut. They don't have.
Yeah, myself included.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
It's all streaming platforms.
Yeah.
And a lot of the advertising on those is dirt cheap if you're buying local space ads. Hulu specifically is one that I would look at if I had some money to throw at it.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. And then if you're talking about like reaching an audience, so you're looking at like 30-second sound bites, like 60-second commercials, or like...
It kind of depends on your person and
Okay.
what it is that you're selling. So you have different ads. You have like your teaser ads, like we talked about,
Yeah.
those 30-second shorts, those
Yeah.
little reels that are 10 to 15 seconds that you're hooking them in. If you're on TikTok, if you're on Reddit, or
Yeah.
if you're on any of those, yeah, that works. If you have, there's... I don't know why this guy sticks out in my head, but he does. And he shows up in my YouTube feed all the time. And it's an ad for a different type of olive oil. And it's a long form ad. It's like 4 or 5 minutes, like an
Okay.
like an infomercial about choosing the wrong type of olive oil to help you lose weight. It's wild. I don't know why, but I watch it almost every single time in its entirety. Almost every time. It just hits. And so it kind of depends on what you're talking about. If it's a really deep thing you're trying to sell to a very specific audience, yeah, you need a little more time. You need a little more attention to explain what you're selling.
Yeah.
If I'm selling Monster, you know what energy drinks taste like. You know what to expect. You can get away with 15 to 30.
Yeah, with this podcast, you need a little more than that, though, because it's just so different and unique.
Yeah. For you, I think you have different stages of it. So, like, when a customer enters the kind of marketing world, right? Up here is awareness. They don't know you exist. Yeah, there's some kind of music, but I like it. It's not unpleasant.
I'm just making sure I can't pick it up on the microphones. And we can't, so we're good.
Okay. So you have your awareness level. They don't know you exist. They don't know they need you. They don't know you want you. That's where you're broadcasting. You're just throwing shit at the wall, hoping that it sticks. That's I'm posting on Facebook every single day. I'm out and about in the community. I'm talking to people. I'm passing out business cards. I'm going to networking meetings. People aren't even aware you're a thing. And so at that top level, it's generalized marketing. It's broad. It's, hey, we have a podcast and you're out there. The next level is where people are starting to research. Okay, I have a specific problem. I'm looking to get more exposure for my business, and I really think a podcast would help. So I'm starting to research on Google free podcasts in my area. I'm looking for a podcasting network, which I have a couple we can actually add your podcast to for free to get you some more guests.
Okay.
But we'll move on from that.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
And they're at that research phase.
Okay.
The next one is, okay, I've decided I'm going to go on a podcast. I know that that's going to help my business. The next stage is consideration. So now I'm starting to look for actual podcasts or products that solve this problem that I'm having. And that's, again, they start typing in podcast in Salem. That's where your hashtags come in. Podcast in Salem, podcast on autism. You're adding these things because then Google, and when they're searching for these keywords, you start to show up. That's where keyword tagging comes in. That's where your search engines come in. That's adding those specific things to your post to make them pop up for the people who are in consideration mode.
Okay.
It's different. Once they have consideration, it's okay, I have these 5 options for the mop that I want to buy, the broom I want to buy. Then they're starting to go to your site. They're looking at your social media. They're looking at your reviews. They're looking at your Google presence. They're seeing, of all of these 5 brands, which one actually works with what I want. That's that next level of consideration. So that's where your image comes through. That's where reputation management comes in. That's where making sure your website specifically says what you do, who you do it for, and how. That's where that piece of marketing comes in. And the next one is shopping. Okay, I have interest. I think these 3 brands are going to do. Now it's, do I care about price? Do I care about comparisons? What matters to my unique person? And then it's the interview, and then it's the buy. And then from the buy, it's, I'm a raving fan. I love you. I tell everybody about you. I'm your person.
Yeah.
And I promote you to other people. So that's kind of that funnel of brand awareness, is that set 5 stage.
I really appreciate that because it brings a different perspective. Like it sort of makes it sort of digestible. Because like when you first start out and you start thinking about all of these things, it can be very daunting.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Marketing is huge. So like I tend to use a method that I call ACEs, and it's authority post, connection post, engagement post, and then sale post. And you try and hit people in these 5 stages. So once a week you might have something, hey, did you know that I run a podcast? Did you know that I talk to people about this thing? You're friends with me on Facebook, but were you aware? And you post something like that. The next one is that connection. Okay, so people now know you have a podcast, and you're trying to get those people that are up for consideration. Hey, we've been doing the podcast. I really want to talk about this topic this month, and I'm looking for 5 or 6 people with some authority on it that can talk to me about it. And so that's that I'm considering being on a podcast, and they see those posts. The next one is the engagement, the people that are researching. Hey, we're talking about autism awareness in schools and whether or not we think it's being talked about enough or talked about properly. I'm looking for 5 teachers, specifically special education teachers, who might be able to help me with that. They see that. That's an engagement. You're asking for their question. You're seeking them out. You're saying, this is the exact person that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And you're putting that out there. And then the next one will be, here's my link to book. And that's a sales post. You want to be on my show? Here you go. So each week when I'm writing my content, I try and do a post per week that hits people at that different level of interest. So if you're just seeing me for the first time, you might see my post that says, did you know I run a marketing agency on top of bartending 3 days a week? You probably didn't,
Right.
but I do.
Yeah.
And I tell them about it. And then the next post might be a business tip about how to incorporate AI or automated scheduling into your business. Oh, wow. She knows what she's talking about. Those are those authority posts that tell people you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
The next one is, hey, I've got 2 spots open for a SWOT analysis this week. Do you want them? Cool. And that's a sales post. And I try and incorporate it so that I'm hitting everyone on the journey. So if you see me, no matter where you're at in that journey, you're going to scroll through my content and it's going to resonate somewhere. That's what you want to focus on.
So how do you combat this idea? So there are certain things, like if I post about a certain subject, I know that my post is being downgraded.
It can be. There's some censorship issues. And so, like, what's one that you think is being censored? Let's go there.
So, yeah, I did a post about recovery.
Okay.
Right? And about the real addiction side. Right? It was a fascinating podcast about, like, the other end of addiction.
Okay.
Not what the media portrays, but what the family of the victim of substance use disorder looks like. And I noticed that when I posted the link to that particular podcast, 7 or 8 people I know normally see my feed didn't see that post.
Couple questions about posting links. Are you posting it inside the content of the message?
Yes.
That's why. So, all of the platforms. Here's a handy marketing tip for you. All of the platforms, their number one goal is to keep you on their platform.
Yeah.
Keep screen time, right? Keep
Yeah.
you scrolling, keep you moving. If I'm sitting here and I'm talking to you and we're talking about the podcast and I'm on your podcast and I say, hey, Sean, you know, right over here around this corner is another podcast you could go be on and it has
Yeah.
more people. Would you like that?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Neither does Facebook. And so when you're dropping a link for them to leave the platform and go somewhere else, Facebook says,
gonna go
no. Yeah, you lose roughly 65 to 70% visibility when you drop an actual link inside the content of your message. If you're going to do that, you say, oh my God, amazing interview with this guy about our recovery stuff. Click in the comments below for the link to the podcast. Never drop live links in your message content. That's my snippet. Don't do it. It will jack you every time.
That explains
don't do
a
it.
lot.
So when you're looking at your posts and you're looking at your reach, do you notice that the ones that you put a live link in, you get 4 views? The ones that you don't, you get 65?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why. Don't do that. Marketing tip, because everyone does it and it messes you up every time.
So let me pause for a second there. And I just want to make sure I get my brain around this all the way, right? So let's say, for example, the podcast that just launched yesterday with Jesse DeVille. Fascinating podcast.
Yeah.
So should I post that my interview with Jesse DeVille, tag him in that piece there,
Yep.
and then say to actually listen to the podcast, visit
Check out the comments below.
section.
Absolutely. Every single time. Every time.
And that little step,
Oh, it's huge. It's monumental for your reach and exposure. If you try and navigate them off of the platform they are on, you are going to get docked every time. Every
that
time.
explains so much.
Yeah. Huge business no-no. Do not try and take them off platform. Period.
So you're almost better off to, like, so for example with TikTok, just taking those clips directly from and then posting them as different videos.
Correct.
And then again, not linking it in.
Correct. You want it in the comments.
Okay.
Now on Instagram you can add links and
Yeah.
you can add I think you can in TikTok as well. TikTok I'm not as versed in because my audience isn't on TikTok. They don't
Yeah,
I'm not as versed in TikTok.
I'm pretty well versed. Like I have like 6,000 followers.
Yeah, I would
and-
assume for you, TikTok would probably
Yeah.
be a good one because
It's
you're audio,
huge.
visual,
Yeah.
and you're talking to musicians.
It's
Yeah.
different. So my TikTok is 100% autism.
Most of mine too.
Yeah.
When I'm on TikTok, that is what my videos tend to
But
be.
that's all my videos are.
Yeah.
That's my content on TikTok.
Perfect. And so you already have a niche, you already have a
Yeah.
group, you have set hashtags that you can use. But inside TikTok, when you're in the comments and you're creating your little TikTok videos,
Yeah.
it has the option in it like Instagram to insert a link, doesn't it?
Kinda, but here's the thing that I've noticed now that you've said that, right? Like, I have been stagnant for about 4 months now, where I'm
on
not really
growth.
growing as much as I was before. And the only thing that changed is that I started sort of adding
links
pieces
in
from
the
my
caption.
podcast. And so I'm thinking about it, probably getting docked for having links to other platforms.
Links to other platforms will 100% do it. And
Yeah.
yes, it does want original content. So like when you're creating the ones for TikTok,
Yeah.
I would just take a cutout of the raw footage we talked about
Yeah.
and put that instead of snippets from the podcast. I would take some of that raw and, CapCut, any of
Yeah.
those, even Riverside, take those clips and directly post them into TikTok. But like Instagram, if you're a creator or a kind of entity or a business,
Yeah.
it gives you the option to add a link to your image.
Okay.
And so as you're doing these videos, you could say, click on the link here, and then up there is the link to your podcast.
Okay.
As long as you're not putting it in the written content down below. You can add the links, and it's a live link. It's like backlinking inside a website page. Same concept.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't mind that. It minds it when you put it in the content because that's what the bots and the spider programs are searching for. So if it sees links, it's like, oh, never mind. And it pushes it down. It suppresses the content. And then back to your recovery one, another good way to pitch and promote that, if you have the time to do it,
Yeah.
is go into recovery specific groups on Facebook. Hey, I'm Sean. We just had a really raw interview about recovery, and I thought that I should share it with some other people. Go into groups for those types of people, and go into community groups for those type of people outside of your reach.
Oh, interesting.
I do it a lot for my marketing stuff. I'm in several different marketing groups, so I
Yeah.
post my content, but then for most of my posts, at least 2 to 3 times a week, I will pick 3 groups that I also share that content in. Because it does me no good if I'm talking to the same 15 people every
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
And so if I go and I post that same content into a group with 1,000 people and I get 5 new followers that don't know who I am and come and track my page because they saw me in this group that we're both in together, then I'm adding to my fold. So, I had a power hour guide that I gave to all of my new social media clients, and you have an hour a day to grow your network. Here's the 6 things. Spend 10 minutes a day doing each of these things. And one of them is going into Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram groups and liking, commenting, and posting in these other groups to attract new eyeballs. So that's something you should be doing at least once a day.
Okay. And then in terms of like the content itself, right? One of the things that I question is because like I probably overshare
I
about
overshare.
my own personal life.
I super
But part of
overshare.
me, I don't mind that because I want people to have eyes into what's really going on in the life of somebody with a disability.
There's a couple ways to look at that from a marketing standpoint. So I was a coach for a while, and
Yeah.
I was a business coach and a marketing strategist before I started doing the nuts and bolts, before I started building websites, I was consulting and I was strategizing with people and using the stuff in my degree saying, do this, do this, do this, before I started doing it for them, right?
Yeah.
And there's a line, or they say there's a line, between what you share about your personal life and what you share about your business. Because if someone meets me, right, and I say I'm Tamara, they like me, we hit it off, they go to my Facebook page, right? They don't go check out my business page. They look me up on Facebook by my name. So
Yeah.
what are they going to come to? They're going to come to my personal page,
Yeah.
right? So what do I share on my personal page? Because that's what they're going to see. And so for a long time, I kept my personal page very public friendly, very
Yeah.
business friendly, and I only shared pieces. And it dawned on me somewhere along the way, like, you see pieces, but that's not who I am. So
Right.
let's say you start working with me and you realize I swear like a sailor, you realize that I'm haphazard, you realize that I'm a little chaotic and a little jumbled, and that's not for you. We're going to have a shitty client relationship.
Yeah.
You're going to hate working with me because I'm not everyone's cup of tea, man. Like, I'm a very specific breed, right?
Yeah.
And so
I would disagree with that statement, but that's just me.
I then kind of went full tilt the other direction.
Yeah.
And I shared everything. Open book, full transparency.
Yeah.
I talked about my bipolar. I talked about my issues with drinking. I talked about issues with my son's autism. I went full tilt.
Yeah.
Whole world knows all the things. And oh, here's this marketing tip. So I did kind of have to dial it back a little bit because you want to make sure that the people that you're working with still trust you, still believe in you, still think that you're competent and that you can do the job and that you can deliver the product you're doing. Now with yours with a podcast, especially like I'm autistic, I'm living as an autistic adult and I'm talking to people about autism, makes sense you would full tilt share everything because you're a radio host.
Yeah.
If I'm doing, I don't know, truck decals, let's say that's my business, right? I wouldn't say, man, I've had this horrible week with my wife. We're doing all this crazy shit. I feel like I'm behind on 18 projects. Because then when they read that, like, well, do you have time to do my truck decal? If you're that far behind, like, I don't know if that's a good fit for me.
Yeah.
And so there is some level of moderation that should go into it. But another way you can get around that, and now I don't anymore, because whatever I post on my personal page, if you want to work with me, you probably know me. It's probably word of mouth, and someone has probably told you that I'm fucking awesome. So if you don't like what's on my page, okay, you don't. But early on in that process, I would have my posts on my page, the ones that I didn't want shared with the whole world, set to friends. And then the ones that I didn't mind, I set as public. And so you could see certain content and you could see snippets, but the ones that talked about my son beating my ass or like, you know, things that were private were friends and family only.
Yeah.
And then as I began to use my personal page as my brand page, when it went from 400 friends to 8,000, everything became public. And then it was just, well, this is who I am.
And that's kind of where I'm at now. It's like I'm expanding like 5 or 6 people a day on Facebook now, which is huge.
Yeah, that's good. You want to be doing that. So part of the power hour was to request and add 20 people a day.
Yeah.
So that's something you should be working, because then even if you get the 10 of them back. So if someone is following you, follow back. And don't follow back and then unfriend. It's a shit thing to do. Just as a
People do that.
People do that. Don't be
Don't
that
do
person.
that.
Don't be that person. Nobody likes it.
I want to pause here for a second, and before I forget, because I want to get on my soapbox.
Okay.
Because
I'm here for soapboxes.
You posted something the other day.
Yeah.
About men in particular.
Uh-huh.
And I was so irate that dudes do this that it just stopped me in my tracks, and I went, "What the like, do dudes really expect like to hit in like in exchange for services, or like flirt for like?"
Yeah.
What the hell is going on there?
So there's this kind of, and I don't understand why, and it's not all dudes I work with, but there's a large percentage. Like, it's not a little group. It's a large percentage, right? Where we start talking about marketing and we start talking about things. They're like, oh, that'd be great for my business. And I'm like, cool, you think I'm smart. And then it turns into, wow, your ass looks great in those jeans. And then we're still talking about marketing. Or, you know, I would love to do this SWOT analysis. And then it'll turn into some type of sexual statement. Or I would also really love to do you if you're down. What the fuck? No. Like, how did you go from that to that?
There's a freaking ring on the finger, right?
How did you get there?
Dudes.
Such a wild leap, man.
Dudes, like, I plead to you, dudes, if there's a ring on the freaking finger, just assume that she's freaking married and don't do that shit.
You know, safe assumption. But even then, you can explicitly tell someone you're married.
Yeah.
It was very evident on my Facebook, very evident in talking to me. I'm married, have been for a long time, right?
Yeah.
And these dudes would still be like, you know, if you ever just want to, you know, chat on the sly, or you're bored, or you want to send me some nudes, you want to send me the amount of requests I get to see my breasts, insane, nuts. And even from people that I work with, and like, wild. And it'll be in conversation. And here's where the tricky piece comes in. Because before you start working with each other, now you're all excited because you think you're going to get a client. And you're like, oh, they like me. They think I'm smart. I'm going to get a new client. Cool.
Yeah.
When they get creepy that early, it's, well, fuck. Okay, I lost a client. And that just is what it is. But then you start working with someone, and they've already paid you $3,000 to build this website and to do this project with them. And it's a 2 to 3 month project that you're stuck in, and there's no way around it. And then they're like, you're really good looking. I ever tell you that, you know, I think you're hot? Or they start like sending you flirty things, and you try and brush it off because what are you going to do? Like,
Yeah.
you're in the middle of this project that they've already paid you for, and you don't want to lose the client. You don't want to lose the money. You don't want to lose the income. So it's,
Talk about an impossible choice, though.
It's awful because and I'm sure I'm not the only female in business that experiences this
I
kind
know
of stuff.
this 100%. That's why I wanted to talk about
And
it.
so
because
you just
it's like,
feel like I have to deal with you making me feel creepy crawling in my skin because I need to pay my bills and I have people I need to feed. And worse than that, it often just becomes an expectation that the clients that you work with, or many of the male clients you work with, are going to say some skeezy shit and are going to make you uncomfortable and are going to harass you in some way. And it's like a known job hazard. Like, this is something that's going to happen. And it does. All the time. All the time. Now, I won't say it's every male client I have, but it is many, many.
And it surprises me. I mean, it doesn't surprise me, but it surprises me. It's 2025. Like, I would have thought we would have evolved more.
I was talking about this with my boyfriend, and he said, I think with a lot of guys, especially now because it's so easy, it's cast my net wide, right? I'm going to throw out 10,000 lures in this pond. I only need one fish. If I throw out 10,000 lures, the likelihood of me getting one fish is real high. And they don't care, especially online, if they get rejected. It doesn't matter. Like, okay, no sweat. I'm not in person sitting next to you saying, wow, that was skeezy as hell. Please don't do that, right? It's online. What are you going to do? You're going to block me and you're going to move on to the next woman. And in a business relationship, especially when there's a power dynamic like that, it's, well, I've paid you $3,000. It's not like you can really get away from me. It's not like you can really walk out of this. And if you do, I'm a businesswoman, right? Let's say I walk out of that situation and I say, this is totally not worth it. I lose the chunk of money.
And the work you put into it.
And the work that I put into it. But let's say it's a $3,000 project. I'm a month in. I say, dude, I cannot handle your sexual harassment anymore. I'm cutting the deal. Well, then he goes around telling everybody that he hired me to finish this website. I didn't do it, and I'm a piece of shit because I didn't finish the work that he paid me to do.
And nobody's going to talk to you about it.
Hey.
Oh, my goodness.
And so then you risk your reputation because you weren't willing to put up with some dude saying, your hair looks really pretty today. I had a dream about you last night, and it was wild. Yeah,
okay.
that's happened verbatim.
I want to go out on a limb and say this publicly because it needs to be known, right? Even if you have a dream about somebody, keep that shit to yourself. Just keep that shit to yourself.
Or at least talk to the people who have invited you to have that conversation.
Right.
Like, there's a niche group of people. Consent is important, folks.
Yes.
Consent is important.
And I always default towards erring on the side of caution, right? But I don't know if that's just my upbringing or what. But I hear these stories and I shake my head and I'm like, I could never do that.
I've been a bartender, right?
Yeah.
For 18 years.
Yeah.
People flirting with you, people hitting on you, people just generally being up in your grill. Really common.
Yeah.
It's a known piece of the job. It's just something you deal with, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know if for me, because that's my background, I also expect it in my business relationships. And so to me, it doesn't seem like an odd behavior. It's just something I'm accustomed to when working with male clients.
Yeah.
And so you just kind of give grace. I never want to embarrass anybody. I never want to make them feel ashamed or upset at something I did. And so I will allow people to talk to me a lot of fucking ways that are not acceptable. And I will brush it off and I'll just, ugh, that's creepy and I don't like that.
Yeah.
But I do it because I don't want people to feel bad about themselves or feel weird. And I think that a lot of women do that as opposed to just being like, what the fuck, dude? That's not okay. We just pull back on it instead.
Well, I think a lot of people don't understand, and even I just didn't acknowledge the ramifications of standing up. There are so many rules and laws to protect this from happening between coworkers at work. Mm-hmm. That rule doesn't apply in situations like
where
yours.
You're self-employed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's up to you to make your sales, and it's up to whether people like you or not that you get to keep your sales. And so if you have a client that pays you $1,500 a month to run their marketing, but they occasionally tell you that they like your ass, or they had a wild dream about you, or tell you that they think you're hot, do you say no? Or, that's my rent. $1,500 is my rent. So do I put up with them talking to me some kind of way and make sure that my rent is paid because I have 4 kids and need to pay my bills? Or do I cut them loose and pray to God that I find another one who's less creepy? And less creepy. Operative.
And how many out there are less creepy?
Hey. And so do you take what you know and you shrug it off and you deal with feeling creepy inside? Or do you say hard stop and you pray to God that someone better comes along? What do you do? What would your choice be?
You know, the hair on the back of my neck just stood up today. You know, that's... Because, like, I remember Megan when she was alive. We used to live in Roseburg. And she encountered a lot of homophobia and a lot of creepiness down there. And we actually had her live with us for several months because of, blatant discrimination, right? Yeah. She would go tour an apartment, and they would be like, oh, yeah, you work for the state, this is awesome, great. And then she would show up with her wife. All of a sudden, the apartment's not available anymore. And after that happened like 6 times, it's like, come on, just move in.
Yeah.
And until you can get up into Portland and get to a place where it's accepting.
Where people are accepting.
Yeah. But it sort of reminds me of that because it was so prevalent. And I mean, like, not like 10, 15 times. It's like 25, 30 times with 30 different people.
Yeah.
It's like, that's...
Wow. And it's weird. And I don't know, maybe it's industry related. Maybe it's, specific to the types of jobs. Because, like, a lot of what I do could be viewed or looked at as, like, assistant work.
Yeah.
Like a secretary. Like, I build websites. I do chatbots. I do your social media. I manage your messages when they come in. And so maybe it's a power thing. Maybe it's I pay you a bunch of money because I can, and you're managing menial tasks that are too small for me. Maybe it's a shift. Maybe it's a type of person that, they want someone in that lesser role. And so because you're lesser than me, I can talk to you some kind of fucking way. Maybe that's what it is or how it's portrayed. As opposed to, I do this because you don't know how, and I do. And so they don't view me as an upper or as a consultant or as a strategist. It's you're my assistant because I don't have enough time. And oftentimes the dudes that do talk to me that way, that there's that kind of dynamic to it.
Yeah, something I always say time and time again, without shared power, there can be no peace. And people in positions of power tend to abuse that position of power when they think or know they can. Right. For one, I'm sorry that go through. Sorry,
It's just a thing that happens.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's always been like that. So
and I can imagine
it's
probably not just this industry, too. I would imagine this is everywhere.
Oh, I would assume so. Yeah. And I think that it's a real struggle for women specifically who are self-employed. Yeah. Because, again, do you choose to pay your rent or do you just be like, you're being a fucking creep, dude. Stop talking to me.
Yeah.
It's a hard position to be in.
And they probably know that and, lean into that. Oh, that is so creepy.
I think it's probably more common. If you were to ask on your page how many women experience sexual harassment or how many self-employed women specifically deal with creepy clients, I bet you'd be surprised.
I won't be surprised after this conversation. And I'm going to do it. So, yeah, I think this is one of those subjects where, I wish more people could talk about it because...
Well, I can't really go to HR and be like,
right.
Todd's saying creepy shit.
Yeah, you can't even go to Boley and say Todd's saying creepy shit.
Yeah, what am I gonna do?
Yeah,
I'm just gonna cut Todd loose and miss out on my car payment. That's the choice.
Oh my God! Wow,
it's a rough one.
That's
a lie.
Yeah, that's just all right, let's transition to something else because that's okay. That makes me so mad. Oh,
the fact it makes you mad is a good thing, though.
Yeah,
I mean, that implies you're not creepy.
Well, I want to put people in a headlock. You're like, what the hell is wrong with you?
Just have some courses about proper etiquette.
Yeah,
how you should speak to fellow business colleagues.
Yeah, just just stop sending pictures of your junk too.
Yeah,
while we're at it,
just
don't send anybody any pictures of your junk. Just leave that stuff behind closed doors. God.
Good segue.
Yeah, good
Don't,
segue.
Don't share dick pics.
Yeah,
Way to go.
please. And I think a good transition would be to talk about being a mom of a child that's on the autism spectrum, if you don't mind.
Interesting segue, but yeah, hit me up. What you got?
So I didn't have a mom growing up. My
sucks.
mom died when I was 10, so I was sort of left to my dad to sort of help me through things, right? And I always look back at my life and, like, imagine how much better off I would be if I had that sort of mom environment. Because one thing that I've realized in my later years in life, especially as somebody with autism, it takes a village
It really does.
to raise us.
It really does.
Like, it takes a lot of work.
And normally a team at school, and a team,
Yeah.
like, it's a large group. Yeah.
Like, how did you, did you suspect sort of early on?
Yeah. So, our son was diagnosed when he was like 4.
Yeah.
When he was still in his crib, it was, I don't really respond to external stimulus. I'm just kind of in my own world. You'd call his name, and he just wasn't very responsive to it, right?
Yeah.
And then in the ways he processes things, the way he spoke, like, it was a lot of parroting. He would say a lot of things, but didn't seem to get or understand what he was saying. Really weird eating habits. Like,
I'm guilty of that.
really weird. And now he's 18 and he's doing well, but it was like eating tubs of butter in the middle of the night and like entire bricks of cheese, and like this is not normal stuff. And so there was some early indicators that things just weren't quite right. And so we were fortunate with him that he did get diagnosed at like 4.
Yeah.
And so we were able to do early intervention with the kindergartens. We were able to get the IEP set up by 1st grade. We were able to do occupational therapy, behavioral. Like we had a team on board by like 2nd grade.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of parents have that luxury. And I think a lot of them find out, 8, 9, 10 when you're in school and your kid's stabbing other people with pencils and things are, haywire before you start to get the process. Like my nephew just got diagnosed and he's 12, 13, and it just got his assessments because there's just that trigger where it's I can't mask anymore. I can't hide anymore. There's a certain stress level at school. It is like, go lose my shit. you know? And so we got pretty fortunate that it was early with our son.
See, and I wish, I go back and forth, right? Like, part of me is thankful I was late diagnosed because I was able to experience some of the things that I was able to experience. Like, the military would have said no if they would have known I was autistic.
Right.
I don't know if that was still the case in the 90s. Probably not, but today, for sure.
In the 90s, I think you might have gotten away with it. But I know now it's part of the screening because my son did look at joining the military. And it is part of the screening.
Which sucks because I would argue that that is a really good way to learn structure. Like, I cannot tell you just how beneficial basic training was for me.
This is the same every single day. You know what to expect, what you're doing,
not
where you're
only
going.
that, but we're the same people. And you actually belong to a group that treats you like family, that treats you with respect. You have this sense of belonging that I never had before in my life.
That was a hard one for my son, was finding people he could vibe with and get along with that understood him, and like feeling like an outsider, feeling lonely. That was huge for my son. For
I always felt like I was on the wrong planet. Yeah, I always did. And one of the things that I appreciate about you, and any mom who's like you, positive reinforcement, making sure that your child loves them, and not speaking publicly like your child is a burden. I hear that from time to time from parents. And every time I see a mom that doesn't do that, I'm like, fucking A, that's awesome. So I just wanted to acknowledge that because I think it's important.
Well, and I agree with you. I do think it's important. And I think that it's easy or easier for some moms when you're looking at you and you're like, man, my life is rough, and you're talking about and you're lamenting and you're like, dude, my kid broke the cabinet door the other day because I told him that he couldn't have his blanket in the living room after 3 p.m. Like some random thing that happened that's wild. You're like, that's some crazy shit, right?
Yeah.
But for you, that's just your everyday. That's what you go through. And you're talking to these other moms, and it's not, I don't love my kid. It's this wild shit happened. I don't know what the fuck to do about it. And so it's really easy to put that out there and be like, we had this horrible battle. We did all these things. But on the other side of that, like, you're speaking that into the universe and you're putting out to other people that your son is such a pain in the ass and he's so hard to deal with. And it would be easier if my son was normal, if my son was this. And you're downplaying your child and you're criticizing your child, not only to other people, but you're reinforcing that in your own mind that
And
your
your
child's
child
a
sees it
burden.
too.
Yeah. And they do. And they hear you talk about it. Or even if you're talking to their team, you're talking to their therapist. When you're speaking to even professionals that are made to help them and support them, you're still criticizing them in these rooms with them and making it sound like they're this huge fucking problem. And your kid feels that. Words don't go away.
No.
So just because I said it to your therapist, you're going home thinking, wow, my mom thinks that I'm just this horrible human being and that I need all these things. And so we were always very cautious to make sure that whatever I said in front of my son was what I would say to my son.
Yeah.
Like, you're right there. You're in the room.
And I think it's important to highlight that too, right? Because it's very important, I think, that not only is it important from your child's perspective, it helps shape the way your therapist interacts with your child.
True.
Because if you come at it from that sort of a lens, then the therapist is going to approach treatment with that kind of lens.
Yeah.
And I have seen so many cases of treatment that has gone off the rails because they didn't listen to the child in the equation.
Yeah. I agree on that. I do think there is some level, what's the word? I want to be sensitive to
Yeah.
my son, and I want to constantly put my son in a positive light for all the things that he is capable of.
100%.
All of the things that he can do. But there are times, though, with the care team or with the schools where if you don't illustrate, no, this is real life. This is what is
Yeah,
happening.
okay.
This is what we're seeing. Whereas if I tell you my son called me these horrible names and broke the window in my living room, and you're like, he's a fucking angel at school. What are you talking about? Like, if I don't tell you these things and you don't know that this is a behavior, you can't help my son work through it. And so there are times where you really do have to illustrate or paint. Like when my son, he was suicidal and he was having all of these issues and all these problems, and we were trying to get like intensive care to come to our house. We worked with youth villages, and they were amazing. But they come in 3 times a week and they do in-home therapy and in-home counseling so they can see the child in the environment and they deal with the family, not just these isolated pieces of it. And we fought and fought and fought because they didn't think that he needed that level of support or that level of care or that level of intervention. And so there is a time where you have to be like, no, seriously, he hits us. He tried to stab his brother. He said he was going to kill this person. This is serious, and I need you to understand. And so there are times where you do have to be critical, and it's not that I want to bully my son. It's not that I want to make him feel bad. I want him to have the support that he needs at the level of support that he needs. And so, yeah, sometimes as a mom, I'm going to say some shitty things, and you're not going to feel great about it because I don't know how else to help you if we don't do those things. And that's a hard line to walk. Now, most of the time, the conversations aren't said with my son unless, like, the therapist is there. Hey, you tried to stab your brother the other day. Like, we need to talk about that.
Yeah.
Like, and so it is a harder line. But you always, I think, like you said, I'm going to point out the strengths. I'm going to point out the reassurances. And even the week my son tried to stab his brother, hey, I know you're off kilter right now, bro. I love you. I want you to be safe. I want him to be safe, and we're going to figure it out. You provide that level of safety to your child, and I think that helps to lower behaviors as well when they feel safe to be who they are.
And I think that's a really important distinction, right? Because one of the gaps in my knowledge base is that I'm not a parent. And I really appreciate that perspective because that's one of the gaps that I'm always looking to broaden my horizons on, because like I can't even imagine that conversation with a therapist. Like, oof.
It's a tricky one. And
Yeah.
like you get some parent, my experience with therapists has been one of 2 ways. They either, you just need to be firmer, you need to have better boundaries, you need to do this and this with your son and you'll be fine. Or it's, wow, like you guys are out of control, you're parenting your kid all wrong, you're not doing, there's one or the other. And it's not like, okay, like these issues are pretty common with a 12-year-old boy in puberty. This is normal.
Yeah.
Now, granted, he's going to have some additional challenges because he's really socially awkward, doesn't know how to make friends. And so since he already struggles with making friends, and that's the critical thing at 12 and 13 is to feel supported and belonging and have a sense of community, and your son doesn't know how to start a conversation, that's going to be a problem. So how do we work through that? Because you need this at normal function, and even more so, it's going to be a challenge for your son to do that. How do you work through that? And you get therapists that either don't believe you that these things are happening, or they think it's so much worse than it actually is. And you're like, dude, my son is a normal 15-year-old boy. It's not his autism. It's the fact that he's 15 and he's being an asshole. Like,
Yeah.
it's just what it is.
Yeah.
And getting people that can wave that line with you and realize that it's like my son, he had an SLP teacher named Steve who was just amazing. And he got Rowan in a way nobody else did. And we went all through high school with Steve as like his person. And he would call me, he's like, dude, Rowan's being a jerk. Like, he's just being mean for no reason. Just he needs to come home. He's done with today. And he did. He enforced boundaries. And he's like, bro, I know you can fill out that math sheet. You're wanting to tell me you're overwhelmed. No, do your math. Like, he understood Rowan well enough to know when he could call him out and when it was something he needed help with. And so you have to find those support people, and that's part of your village. That's part of your team. You got 4 or 5 of these core people that know your kid well enough to be like, nah, maybe not.
And if you're not comfortable with one of the people on the team, switch them up if you can.
Yeah, that was...
Don't stick around. If you don't like the therapist, don't stick around.
We went through an obscene amount of therapists.
Oh, I can only imagine.
An obscene amount of therapists. And a lot of it, so like we might have liked a therapist and vibed and thought that they were telling us what we wanted to hear, but my son didn't like his therapist. And if my son doesn't like you and isn't going to talk to you, what good is me bringing him every week going to do?
Yeah.
And so we went until he could find people he vibed with. And like, we didn't know that my son was uncomfortable with females. That took a while. And so then it had to be, you know, he prefers male teachers. He prefers male counselors. He is better directed and his behaviors are minimized working with males. Okay, cool. Whatever. So be it. And once we switched and it was males, there was a huge improvement because we figured that piece of it out. And the school figured that piece of it out. So the assistant wasn't a female. The assistant wasn't, you know, switching out his team and knowing who to switch out to made a huge difference.
Yeah.
But we went through, I'm going to say 15, 16 different therapists. We're in the middle of switching therapists right now. And my son's 19 now, and we still are part of his care team, and we still communicate and work through those pieces.
Yeah, it took me, 4 years to find the therapist that I have now.
Did you go every single week and try someone? How long did you stay with each one?
I would stay like 2 or 3 times, you know, but then it would be really clear that I was spending most of the therapy visit explaining autism and then trying to work through autism for the last 5 minutes.
That sucks.
And then finally I found the therapist that I have now that I love him to death because I don't have to explain anything. He just knows. And when I go in and I tell him what's going on, he's like, I bet you did this. Or I bet
already
you
knows
thought that.
the chain of behaviors. Yeah.
Right. And so like he's given me these strategies that I didn't know was possible just because he understands autism. And so many therapists don't. It was to the point where like I switched health insurance and he wasn't covered by my health insurance. So I paid him.
Yeah, you're like okay,
I'm keeping
here's
you.
what we're doing.
Like, I can't afford it.
Yeah.
But I'm going
We will
to pay
figure
you.
this out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I switched back as soon as I was able to. But, because I didn't think about that when I switched insurances.
Right.
Yeah. But
We
it's,
had a
like,
real struggle
so
with
important.
that.
Yeah.
Switching insurance when you have a dedicated care team, nightmare.
Yeah.
Nightmare.
Yeah. And then getting that care team back, once you switch back, is not necessarily guaranteed either. Yeah.
We lost some really key people. So when my son had his care team, 15, 16, they start to allow you to make your own medical choices, right? And you can decide who's on your team, who's not on your team. Now,
that's another conversation for another time.
Right. And so my son fired most of his support team, most of his care team. He's like, fuck you, you're cool. Get out. Like, very much just mass fire sale. Just everybody was gone. And then when he turned 18, it was, I'm an adult and I don't need you guys to do these things for me and I can make all these choices. Fired everybody. I'm fine. I don't need any of this. And then a little bit past 18, it was, okay, well, like, maybe I do. Like, and a lot of them were gone and they weren't accepting new people. And it was a huge hassle to reestablish these care teams when he was then ready to move into a group home and ready to do his own thing and get his Social Security and all. It was a real nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have some big thoughts about being able to get rid of your care team at 16.
I don't understand that. You know, I used to work for the state at the time, and even the state of Oregon can't make certain decisions.
Yeah.
The child makes decisions
up to
for themselves.
Which I get it. Like, you want kids to be empowered. And at that age, many kids have the wisdom, the character, the cognizant abilities to make those decisions for themselves at 16.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I was pregnant and had my own apartment and was graduating high school at 16. Like, there's a difference.
Yeah.
And so a lot of kids, I think, do have that. But when you're dealing with a child with autism and processing disorders and cognizant disorders or possibly delays, yes, you're 16, but your processing is that of like a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
Should you be allowed to fire your social worker? Probably not. Like, you need that person, right? Like, but you can. You can fire your whole fucking team. Found that out. And it's a situation.
Yeah.
I like that he had the choice to do that. When he told me he was going to do that, I said, okay, like, here you go.
Yeah.
Run with it, buddy. Like, this is what's going to happen if you do. And I made sure he knew the consequences, made sure he was aware of what was going to happen. But how else do you learn if you don't do these things? If you don't figure them out?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to learn by fire, bro. Like,
Yeah.
okay.
And there are so many situations where I had to learn by fire for that same reason. Because, like, you don't even think about actions.
Like you switching your insurance.
Actions
you
have
didn't think
consequences.
to see if your therapist was covered before you switched insurances.
No.
Yeah. It wasn't a thought. It
wasn't even a thought.
Boom.
Yeah.
And then you're like,
Yeah.
let's dial that back.
What do I do now? Yeah. Like, uh-oh. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And that's really common with my son, especially. He'll make decisions without a lot of forethought into this is what could happen.
Yeah.
This is how this happens. This sounds really good in the moment, and it's very impulsive, and it's very like, cool, this is what we're doing. And then there's the fallout that comes with it.
So I have a boundary that I have in place for myself now.
Yeah.
Because I would be very impulsive. Mm-hmm. And so if there's something I really want, if it's like on a Monday, I'm like, oh, I really want this. I put it on a board, and I come back on Tuesday, do I really want it? Wednesday, really want it? And then Thursday, after 3 days, if it's still up there on the number one, I want it. Okay, I can go this route. But 90% of the time, it's on Tuesday. I'm like, I don't need this. Like, what was I?
Why did I need another cat fountain?
But before, like,
on Monday, it was
I had
like
this boundary,
yes.
it would get myself into trouble because I'm out of money and it's a week before payday.
Yeah, I booked this weekend trip because I was feeling stressed out and thought I needed to be off work for a week. Turns out I just needed a donut and a nap. Like,
yeah. You know, that's exactly right.
That's totally true.
Yeah,
that's normally my go-to. I take a snack.
Yeah,
like immediately, and then I'm like, oh, I was just hungry.
Yeah,
that was a thing.
I appreciate that we went down that rabbit hole. Yeah.
I am known for rabbit holes. It happens.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Maybe because I have 3 children on the spectrum at different levels. And so rabbit holes are real common, and, you know, we get a little squirrely. And we go off topic and hopefully eventually make it back or somewhere close. But you find good things in the rabbit hole. You learn different things. It's not bad.
And I love that. One of my favorite things to do is to talk to fellow people on the spectrum about their passion projects. Like, what's your hyper focus right now? Let's talk about that.
My hyper focus right now is this success worksheet that I've been... Okay, so it started out with, I'm going to write a blog about 2025 marketing trends, because it's different. Especially with the enhancement of ChatGPT, and then you've got the crackdowns on how they're using AI. Marketing is really different.
Interesting.
In the last year or two. And so I was like...
What do you mean the crackdown?
So, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all of them, they're kind of cracking down on the use of, let's say, ChatGPT to write content, to do prompts, to do these things, because they want to see organic, original content. And if a robot's doing it, it's not organic, original content, right? And so they're starting to put more software in place to recognize if something is AI generated or if it thinks it's AI generated. If I write something that's too polished on my Facebook, I've gotten flags that say, we think this was written by a robot. And they'll put me on restriction for like 24 hours.
Interesting.
Even if I wrote it. Like, if I have AI write something, it'll make it through sometimes. But like, this was literally a post I wrote about business networking on LinkedIn, how to use LinkedIn. And now, granted, when I'm writing professional things, I do have a master's degree. I did the research. I know how to write. I know how to technically write. And so some of it does come off very stuffy and very academic. And so this particular post, I got a notification from Facebook saying, we removed this post because we think that it was AI generated. I'm like, so I appealed it and I was like, bro, I wrote this. Like, this was me.
Yeah.
And they still gave me like a 24-hour ban on my content. But they're starting to crack down a lot more on that. And then like we talked about with video content, or like we talked about with not putting links inside the actual body of the content. So I was thinking I'll write a blog about all of this.
Yeah.
So I did. And I wrote the blog and I was like, that's cool. I bet you this would make a really cool little ebook. And so then that became an ebook. And then I was like, you know what would be even better is if I made like worksheets to go with this so that people would have like a planner on how to use these things. And so this is now like a 2-month-long thing that I've been building that started as a 2-page blog that I wrote about marketing trends. And that's been kind of my passion project, because now this book is like 32 pages long and it comes with a 20-page workbook that goes with it. And deciding how I wanted the pages to be laid out for the workbook. Like, oh, that's not quite the right color. Like, I'm gonna switch that. Like, it's been a whole ass thing. But I did complete the workbook. I did complete the pages. So now it's finally at I need to create a landing page and start talking about it on my marketing pages.
Yeah.
But yeah, my 2-page blog turned into a 2-month-long project. Like
That's
a full-scale
cool,
marketing project.
And that's something that you could actually transform into something that people can digest.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. The blog would have been good, but I didn't feel at the time. I really enjoyed what I was doing, and so I was like, oh, I'll just do more of this. I'll do more of this. And then I was like, people could use this. They could print out these worksheets and use them every single week and every single month. And I was like, okay. And so I just dove. Like, that was my dive in.
Yeah.
And then as far as like personal, for me, it's been gardening. And more specifically, aquaponic gardening. Like, I want to grow things in
aquaponic?
just water. So you plant things in just water. And so it's been researching which plants grow only in water, which is like pothos or ivies, or there's different herbs that you can grow inside just water.
Are they just kind of floating and growing?
So you put them in like a cup or like a cup of water, and the roots grow and do their things, and then they grow without needing soil or dirt or nutrients. You want to get even crazier than that? I looked up it's a hydroponic garden that has fish in the bottom, and the plants feed the fish in the top, and the water and the nitrogen from the fish feed the plant in the top. And I, no joke, spent 3 days searching for the right type of aquarium setup that would fit on the edge of my desk in my office. It's been a whole ass thing.
I'll throw another loop in there too. I saw a video of a fish tank with a hole cut out for the cat.
Oh, that's
so
wild.
The cat could lay in the middle of the fish
Does the
tank.
cat just lose his fucking mind?
Yeah.
Like, I will get you, fish. One day I will figure this out. That sounds so torturous.
I thought so
Sounds
too.
awful. And like, what is the fish thinking? Like, oh shit, like, fish are dumb. Like, what do you? That's rude. I don't think I would. That's rude. I don't think I would do that.
I don't think I would do that
That seems
either.
rough. Not gonna lie. But that's been my passion project as far as home and as far as work go. And it always turns out that way.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if it's an ADHD thing, but there's always something where I'm like, yes, let's hyperfixate on this one thing. And until I get it all the way out,
Yeah.
like, it was a blog, and then it was an ebook, and then it was a worksheet, and now it's a landing page, a chat bot, a book, a planner.
So how do you create a chatbot?
How
How hard was that?
It was hard to figure out. Now that I know how, it's really easy. But I used a program called MiniChat. So for anyone that wants to do that, I used a program called MiniChat, and inside there you set up prompts and you create conversations. So let's say someone goes on your Sullivan's Facebook page, right? And we've set up MiniChat. They go into Messenger and they message you and it says, hey, this is Sean. Or you could even be cheeky about it like I was. This is Sean's chatbot.
Yeah.
What's up? Are you interested in viewing past shows? Are you interested in being on the show? Or are you just checking things out? And then they select a box, and depending on the box it takes, it's like a choose your own adventure. You write prompts for each of those boxes. Oh, you want to see past shows? Here's a link to my website that has all of our past shows. Or they say, I want to be a guest. Okay, cool. I'm always looking for new guests. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Here's this little form that I'm going to have you fill out to see if you would be a good fit for my show. Or your booking link so that they can have a 15-minute coffee chat with you. Or if it's, I'm just checking things out. Oh, cool. I love new people on the show. If you like it, please give us a like, give us a share, give us a follow. And here's my top 3 that I think you should check out. And you just program these little sequences. And so I got in the habit of creating them for businesses with, do you want to check out our gallery? Do you want to book an appointment? Do you want to do this? And so when I first started my marketing business, I built a ton of chatbots. Like that was an easy $50. It was a quick turnaround. I could get them done in 2 or 3 hours. And then they would have a chatbot on all of their social media pages or on their website. And then it was a lead magnet. You know, download my free ebook on how to do better marketing in 2025. And then it takes them to the website and does the page. Yeah. And so chatbots, you can even build them on Facebook now. And I built a Facebook Messenger bot that is interactive, and it's like Marketing Mavis or something like that, I think is her name.
That's awesome.
And I wanted to see how, and it uses the same stuff like ChatGPT uses, and it's automated learning. And so I gave it prompts about what I wanted it to talk about. I entered my marketing ebook and all of its content. I said, I want it to sound like this. This is what I talk about. This is what I cover. And it, no joke, like fills it in and talks to people as a fucking robot on Facebook. I have 2 of them.
That's awesome.
I'm super geek into things like that. So when something brand new comes out, I want to know all about it, and I want to know how to do it, and I want to figure it out before anyone else so I can try and make money before it becomes mainstream. So I figured all that out early.
So if people wanted to hire you, what's the best way to reach you?
That's a valid question. I'm going to say probably Facebook. I'm on Facebook all the time because I use it for clients. And so Facebook's probably the easiest way to find me. You could go to my website.
Yeah.
Website's businessboldly.com. And
Business
there is
Boldly?
Yep. Yeah. I wanted it to be super easy. So there's a chat bot at the bottom that says get a hold of me. And then right up at the top is a button that says get started. And everyone gets at least a free 20-minute, like, let's chit chat about your business and see if I can even help you.
Yeah.
Like, I want to make it as easy as possible for people to work with me.
And I like that you do that on the front end too, because like it's like you were saying, time is money.
Yeah.
And anything you can do to sort of filter that, sort of make sure that you have the, because like I appreciate companies and organizations like yours that sort of, you know, have a commitment into actually helping the customer. And one of the things I talk ad nauseum about this podcast is about how important it is to be local.
Yeah.
Because if you think the national marketing folks give one crap about your business, the answer is no, they don't.
No, you're a number, you're a paycheck. Yeah. I really like small business, and I think because I started mine and I remember how hard it was, and I remember working 3 jobs and trying to get it off the ground, like it's really important to me. And so even if you can't afford me and we don't work together, I will go through your website, I will check out your social media, and I will do your 20 minutes with you, and everyone leaves with at least a 10-step action plan. So here's 10 things without me that you can do to immediately make your marketing better. And then if you have the money and you want to hire me to do those things for you, or you want the next level of suggestions, cool, let's do that.
Yeah.
But I make sure everyone gets something. Like, you're never going to go away empty-handed when you talk to me. You will get something out of it every time, because it's important. How else are you supposed to get started if no one gives you the ropes or shows like how to?
Yeah.
How else are you gonna do it?
Well, I appreciate it so much. We've been at this for almost an hour and a half.
I know. I'm sorry.
we
got rambly, like we talked about.
I don't mind at all. Tam, thank you so much. And please, I can't stress this enough, dudes. Stop doing creepy shit.
Facts.
Please.
Facts.
We're on the same planet. We share the same air, and it's just so much easier just to be kind.
See, that's your 10-second. Dude, stop doing creepy shit.
Yeah. Just stop doing creepy shit. It's not hard. It's not hard, folks.
Stop being weird.
Yeah. Like, and no means no. End of list. End of list. Tam, thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you.